Have you ever found yourself sitting alone in your parked car after a casual get-together, gripping the steering wheel, feeling completely and utterly drained? Nobody yelled at you. It was just a normal dinner with friends. Yet the moment that car door shuts, all you want to do is curl up in the dark and hide from the world. In your mind, a seemingly harmless conversation plays on a relentless loop. Why did their eyes shift when I said that? 100 silent questions press heavily against your chest, making it hard to simply breathe. Some people look perfectly fine on the outside, but inside, everything feels intensely loud, yet strangely muted. They carry an exhausting paradox, a warm smile designed to soothe the room, and a mind screaming from sensory overload the second they are alone. You sit there and wonder, am I broken? Why do I feel everything so deeply, so painfully, while everyone else just effortlessly brushes things off? If you have ever whispered that exact question to yourself in the quiet of the night, I need you to pause, take a deep breath, listen to me very carefully. You are not broken, you are not weak, and you're certainly not just overthinking. The truth about your mind is far more beautiful and far more complex than you realize. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is the colleague who always knows when you're having a bad day before you even say a word. She is the friend who remembers exactly how you take your coffee and senses the subtle, hidden shift in your voice when you claim, "I'm fine." She anticipates everyone's needs seamlessly. But last Tuesday, Sarah sat alone in her car and wept for 45 minutes after work. Not because of a massive tragedy, but because the sheer, invisible weight of everyone else's emotions had finally crushed her. She knew exactly what everyone else in her life needed, yet she felt like no one could ever see what she needed. Does Sarah's story feel uncomfortably familiar to you? You might have spent your entire life believing this emotional exhaustion is a fundamental flaw in your character, a sign that you're just not resilient enough for the real world. But in the realm of psychology, what you're experiencing actually has a very specific name. You are what clinical researchers define as a highly sensitive person, or an HSP. This is not a trendy internet label, and it is definitively not a mental illness. It is a scientifically recognized biological trait found in roughly 15 to 20% of the human population. Your nervous system is fundamentally wired to be more porous. You aren't imagining things when a busy room feels physically heavy, or when a slight change in a loved one's tone feels like a disaster. You are simply processing the world at a volume and frequency most people cannot even hear. Your exhaustion is not a sign of emotional weakness. It is the natural byproduct of a high-performance sensory engine running constantly on overdrive. But why do we shut down like that? Why does a completely normal environment suddenly feel like a physical assault on your senses? To understand this, we have to look beneath the surface of your emotions and dive into the actual neuroscience of your brain. First, we need to talk about your mirror neurons. These are the specialized brain cells responsible for human empathy and understanding the intentions of others. In a typical brain, mirror neurons allow someone to logically recognize that another person is sad or distressed. But in the highly sensitive brain, these neurons are significantly hyperactive. When you see someone crying, or even just sitting quietly with a heavy heart, your brain doesn't just recognize their sadness, it actively and physically simulates it. Your nervous system literally mirrors their physiological state. You feel their pain, their anxiety, and their hidden tension as if it were happening directly to you. It is not a conscious choice you're making. It is an involuntary biological reaction. Then there is your amygdala, the brain's primitive alarm system, responsible for detecting threats and processing emotional responses. For an overfeeler, the amygdala is incredibly sensitive. It acts like a highly tuned, constantly rotating radar dish. While an average person might comfortably ignore the low humming of a refrigerator, the harsh glare of fluorescent office lights, or the subtle, passive-aggressive micro-expression on a coworker's face, your amygdala picks up on absolutely all of it. It categorizes every tiny shift in the room as crucial data. You aren't imagining the profound fatigue you feel after a crowded meeting. Your body is actually working overtime. This constant, unfiltered influx of sensory and emotional data leads directly to what psychologists call overstimulation. Imagine your brain as a smartphone that is simultaneously running 100 complex background applications. It doesn't matter how powerful the processor is. Eventually, the battery will drain at an astonishing rate, and the system will simply freeze. Your emotional shutdown is not a failure of your character. It is your neurological hardware desperately trying to cool down. But here's what most people miss about the highly sensitive brain. It's not just about feeling things loudly. It is about how deeply your mind anchors onto every single detail. Psychologists call this the depth of processing, and it is the defining hallmark of your experience. You do not just take information at face value. You subconsciously analyze, dissect, and connect everything. This is exactly why an offhand, perfectly ordinary comment made by a coworker on a Tuesday afternoon can keep you staring blankly at the ceiling at 3 a.m. on a Friday. You are playing the interaction over and over, analyzing the micro-expressions, the slight pause before they spoke, and every possible hidden meaning behind their words. Because of this profound depth, your emotional weather changes rapidly. You wake up to those heavy, grey mornings where nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels irrevocably off. Your morning coffee tastes exactly the same, yet a strange, quiet grief sits heavily in your chest. You're processing the collective weight of the world around you, the news you read yesterday, the subtle sigh of your partner, the unspoken tension in your office. This brings us to a profound human truth. You do not just observe the world, you translate it. You filter every interaction, every glance and every silence to a complex prism of 1,000 different emotions. While this depth grants you an incredibly rich inner life, it also means you're constantly carrying a cognitive load that most people could never endure. You are reading the fine print of human existence, and that fine print is simply exhausting. Because your brain operates at this intense depth, living in a modern, chaotic world often feels less like a biological gift and much more like a heavy, inescapable curse. You become what psychologists frequently refer to as an emotional sponge. You walk into a room and instantly, involuntarily, absorb the energetic temperature. If a friend is secretly resentful, even if they are smiling brightly, your body immediately registers the dissonance. You feel their sharp, unspoken tension settling heavily into your own chest. This constant, unguarded absorption of invisible frequencies leads directly to severe emotional burnout. You find yourself utterly exhausted, not from physical labor, but simply from existing in environments thick with other people's unresolved emotions. You unintentionally become the designated emotional dumping ground for everyone around you, carrying their grief, their stress, and their silent anger until your own spirit feels entirely hollowed out. This incredibly heavy burden naturally triggers a deeply painful imposter syndrome within your closest relationships. Because you feel things so intensely and care so deeply, society often conditions you to believe that you're fundamentally too much. Have you ever been told that you think too much, care too much, or take things way too personally? Over time, this repetitive messaging becomes a toxic inner voice. It makes you shrink. You start suppressing your own fundamental needs. You silence your true emotions and adopt severe people-pleasing behaviors just so you don't overwhelm the people you love. You learn to swallow your tears, to quiet your anxieties, and to pretend that everything is perfectly fine, all while actively managing the emotional weather of everyone else in the room. You build a beautifully curated facade of strength, terrified that if you ever let your mask slip, the sheer, chaotic volume of your inner world will drive everyone away. You end up starving for genuine connection, yet entirely terrified of being truly seen. But perhaps the most quietly devastating aspect of being a deep feeler is what I call the trauma from apathy. Because you pay attention to the absolute smallest details, remembering how someone takes their coffee, noticing the exact moment their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes, sensing when they desperately need a comforting text before they even have to ask. You naturally, almost innocently, expect that same level of hyper-awareness in return. But here is a painful psychological truth. The profound heartbreak you experience rarely comes from massive, explosive conflicts. It comes from the relentless, daily accumulation of small apathy. It is the quiet, crushing realization that a rushed, distracted world simply does not possess the neurological hardware to love you with the same agonizing depth that you love them. You pour out 100% of your emotional awareness, and when you only receive 20% back, it doesn't just feel like a simple disappointment. It feels like a profound, invisible betrayal. It leaves you feeling entirely unseen, standing completely isolated even while surrounded by a crowded room of people who claim to know you. You are completely fluent in a beautiful, complex language of care that no one else around you seems to speak. And because of this, you slowly start to believe that your love is somehow a mistake. You sit in the silence and wonder why you are always the only one who remembers, the only one who stays awake, the only one who willingly breaks their own heart just to make sure no one else has to feel the cold. This silent, chronic heartache is the true hidden cost of feeling everything in a world that often chooses to feel nothing. But here is the paradox. When the crushing weight of the world becomes entirely too heavy, you do something that deeply confuses everyone around you. You pull away, you retreat, you go completely, devastatingly quiet. And to the loud, demanding outside world, this sudden sharp withdrawal looks exactly like coldness. It looks like you have suddenly stopped caring about them. But underneath that silence, the exact opposite is happening. Your silence isn't indifference, it's protection. You are not shutting people out because you no longer love them. You're closing the door because your neurological system is desperately on fire. You retreat into the quiet shadows because it is the only place where you do not have to constantly absorb, translate, or manage the turbulent emotional weather of another human being. It is the only safe harbor where you can finally put down the agonizingly heavy armor of being the strong, understanding one. Take a deep breath right now. Let your tired shoulders drop. I need you to understand that your sudden urge to disappear into a dark, quiet room is not a toxic symptom of depression. It is a profound, beautiful act of self-preservation. You are simply stepping out of the deafening storm to let your deeply exhausted mind finally catch its breath. Stop pathologizing your incredible sensitivity. Stop trying to numb your beautifully complex mind just to fit into a world that has grown increasingly, tragically disconnected from its own heart. Yes, being a highly sensitive person can feel agonizing, but the exact same neurological framework that makes you feel utterly exhausted in a loud, chaotic environment is also the source of your greatest, most profoundly hidden superpower. Think about it. That hyperactive nervous system gives you world-class, almost superhuman intuition. You have the uncanny ability to walk into a room and immediately read the unspoken emotional currents. You can effortlessly spot a hidden agenda or a quiet lie from a mile away because your brain naturally detects the microscopic inconsistencies in human behavior that everyone else completely misses. Because you process everything so deeply, you possess a level of creative genius and artistic appreciation that others will never truly know. You do not just listen to a beautiful piece of music, you feel its vibrations in your very bones. You don't just look at a painting, you absorb its emotional history. Furthermore, you are the ultimate healer. You are the steadfast friend everyone instinctively calls in a midnight crisis. You are the natural counselor, the deeply empathetic leader, the rare person who makes others feel truly, safely seen in an incredibly lonely world. Society desperately needs your overwhelming depth. A hardened, fast-paced world is absolutely starved for the exact empathy you so freely provide. You are not a glitch in the human matrix. You are its conscience. Your sensitivity is the very thing that keeps humanity wonderfully, irrevocably human. But to safely wield this profound superpower, you absolutely must learn how to protect it. You cannot save a drowning person if you're willingly drowning right alongside them. This is exactly where we need to actively build your psychological survival toolkit. It is time to stop bleeding out for a world that refuses to offer you a bandage. Remember that powerful 10-word emotional boundary I promised you earlier? This is the ultimate, life-saving psychological shield for a highly sensitive person. I want you to write this down, memorize it, and make it your daily mantra. I understand their feelings, but this is not my burden. Let me repeat that, so it truly sinks into your exhausted mind. I understand their feelings, but this is not my burden. As an overfeeler, your immediate biological instinct is to fiercely fix people. When you feel their sharp pain radiating through your mirror neurons, your brain forcefully tricks you into believing that you must actively solve their crisis just to relieve your own physical discomfort. But you must learn to separate your deep empathy from their personal responsibility. You can gracefully hold space for someone's heavy sadness without letting it become a permanent, agonizing resident inside your own fragile nervous system. Visualize a soundproof glass wall between you and the person in pain. You can clearly see them, but their violent emotional weather cannot penetrate your safe atmosphere. Secondly, you must finally embrace your strict biological need for absolute downtime.
It's okay to feel
After a long day of high-frequency sensory processing, your nervous system is essentially a smartphone running on 1% battery, dangerously overheating. Retreating into a dark, perfectly quiet room and forcefully shutting out the chaotic world is not an act of antisocial behavior. It is definitively not a symptom of depression. It is a strict biological necessity. It is the mandatory maintenance required for a high-performance neurological engine. You must start protecting your alone time without a single ounce of guilt, because that profound silence is the only place where you can safely stitch yourself back together. Finally, you need to practice active cognitive reframing. The next time you find yourself suddenly crying over a poignant movie, do not cruelly tell yourself you are weak. Reframe that toxic thought immediately. Gently tell yourself, I possess a stunningly rich, deeply complex inner world, and I am grateful that I can safely experience the absolute full spectrum of the human condition. Do not let a hardened world forcefully convince you to lose your beautiful softness.
This music is actually pretty good.
Imagine standing in front of a mirror in a quiet, sunlit room. For so many years, you looked at your reflection and thought you saw someone who was fundamentally broken, someone whose heart was simply too fragile for this loud, chaotic world. But I need you to look closer now. The cracks you thought you saw are actually the deep, beautiful rivers of your profound empathy. You are a vast, quiet ocean. The surface may catch the heavy rain of every passing storm, but your depths remain incredibly powerful, rich and full of life. Your sensitivity is not a disorder to be cured. It is a profound gift to be mastered. Please do not ever let a loud, careless world convince you to extinguish your gentle light. If this video made you finally feel seen, or if it gave a much-needed voice to the quietest parts of your heart, you are no longer alone. We are actively building a safe, understanding community of deep thinkers and deep feelers right here, and we would be honored if you stayed. Please gently hit the subscribe button to join us. And before you retreat into the quiet to recharge, please share your truth in the comments. What is the most exhausting or the most beautiful part of feeling everything so deeply? I am listening. Take care.